In some respects, I view Dragunity as the Synchro version of Gem Knights. They are quite explosive, but that explosive ability is reliant on a small segment of cards, both within their deck itself and within the archetype of their support. If you don't get those cards early, it becomes quite difficult to compete. Dragunity is also one of those decks that seems to demonstrate a failed opportunity because while it has a lot of support, and a fair amount of that support is not bad, most of that support is just significantly inferior and plays no real role in what I feel is the most effective way to play the deck. If Dragunity ever got one or two more specific support cards, then it could be possible for a number of new variants to emerge. Well, with that said, let's get to the deck build. On its own, Leyvaten is just an okay card. Its attack is somewhat low for a 2-tribute monster, especially in this modern meta, and while it can special summon itself, the condition is kind of rough due to the monster requirement and the fact that the monster needs to be banished instead of just tributed. The biggest annoyance with this card is that the second effect requires it to be destroyed by an opponent's card effect instead of simply destroyed by a card effect or even just sent to the graveyard. All that said, though, I do run one copy to summon number 38 off of the big combo. Mystletainn is another upgrade card, but its innate special summons only requires a Dragunity monster instead of a monster equipped with a Dragunity. Very important distinction, makes Mystletainn much more effective in special summoning itself. I have mixed feelings towards Mystletainn. However, one can't deny that for certain consistency purposes, the way the deck currently sits, and with the introduction of Coral Dragon for Ultimaya summoning, Mystletainn is still a useful card. 2-cop. If Primus Plus had the tricky kind of effect where it could special summon itself by discarding a card, or heck, even just a Dragunity monster, it would be much better, and actually could kind of slip into almost quasi-staple status in a number of Dragunity variants, because its get from the deck effect is pretty powerful. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I feel bad for Primus in a sense because it was given a pretty useful effect, but then was levied with some needless restrictions limiting its overall usefulness. If Augusta Clavi was level 4 and 1800 attack or something, then it would still not be good at all, but at least it would not be a waste of paper. However, this is not the case. Militum isn't a bad card, it just seems to be lacking a nice combo piece that could have significantly increased its usefulness. Yes, it works nicely with Partisan, but that's just not enough. Without more combo ability, it needed to be able to special summon itself, but without that ability, it's just too slow and unreliable right now. Dux is one of the 2 best Dragunity monsters, and should be run at 3 at all times. If Phalanx is in the graveyard when this card is normal summoned, that's when the fun really begins. No matter what the desired variant, Dux is the chief combo starter for Dragunity. Pelum is just too slow, as there's really no advantage in the entire archetype to attacking directly or inflicting battle damage for that part, so there's no really point to running the card in the modern meta, for its inefficiency significantly outweighs any late game benefit one might receive for it once in a blue moon. The only real valid target that I can see with Pelum is Barcha, and Barcha is just not a very good card on its own merits. Legionnaire is a quality card with its graveyard self-equipping effect just like Lux, but it has been somewhat negatively impacted by the shift to a more destruction-resilient due to pendulums, anti-targeting, and floating meta. Legionnaire is not a bad side deck choice for back row heavy rogue decks, as it can help goad out some of those back row to prevent its monster popping effect, but its main deck days are probably gone. Dark Spear has a couple of worky combos, but for the most part it's rather ineffective. Partisan is one of those cards that is bad only really because its effect is made rather meaningless by other cards. For example, there are only 6 cards that work with its effect. Dux and Legionnaire want to be normal summons, so special summoning them from the hand is detrimental and kind of stupid. Augusta Clave and Tribus are horrible and should not be run. Militum is not horrible, but just shouldn't be run because it doesn't do anything but combo with this card. Only Primus works with this card well, but that's not reason enough to run this card, because in most other situations it's just kind of a dead draw. Javelin is really only useful in combination with a card like Scrap Dragon, and that usefulness does not really occur nearly enough to warrant its use. Ackley's is a lot like Legionnaire, a quality card that has been somewhat power creeped out of being useful in the current meta. Too bad, because it does have some nice advantages, especially in combination with Legionnaire, for the ability to destroy any card is nice versatility, as well as being a dragon tuner with only 1000 attack, lets it combo with Cards of Consonance. Overall, in my opinion, the general relevance of Legionnaire is directly tied to the overall relevance of Ackley's, because they work so well together. Phalanx should always be run at 3, for as a level 2 tuner that can special summon itself after being equipped to a monster, it allows for huge combination potential with both Dux and Vajrayana, creating easy access to both level 6 and level 8 Synchros. The fact that it is a dragon tuner that can be a target for Cards of Consonance only makes it better. Corsica is a card that on its face has potential, but just never seems to live up to that potential. In a slower meta, it might have been useful, creating a continuous turn-after-turn summoning loop with a card like Lux or Legionnaire, but with the general speed and monster elimination characteristics of the existing meta, and more than likely all metas to come, Corsica just isn't worth it. Brandistock is another one of those cards that definitely serves a nice purpose, but the deck itself just does not seem to have the resources to make significant use of its effect. If a card like Dragon's Shrine didn't exist, then maybe Trebus would be meaningful due to its Foolish Burial effect, but typically having to waste a normal summons on this card is just too much of a cost for such a rather limited effect, regardless of the build. With how difficult it is to summon, one would have expected more from Barcha's effect. While it can have some decent power due to the effects of Prelum, Brandistock, and Corsica, having only 2,000 attack points significantly limits its overall effectiveness. Barcha comes off as one of those cards that designers looked at and said, whoa, this card could be really, really powerful, so let's make sure that it is almost never powerful. Trident is just not worth it, for while it is not difficult to summon, although more difficult than it should be because it's a level 7, having to destroy cards on your field without having any ability like Barcha to equip itself when it summons, giving you the free targets to destroy, the benefits are far exceeded by the detriments. Gale Dearg is definitely worth one spot in the extra deck as an important piece in the long combo loop, and heck, an important piece in almost any combo loop. Also, it can thin the deck by using its Bujin Yamato's effect while netting advantage. Fortunately and unfortunately, one copy is all that is necessary. Fortunately, because extra deck space in Dragunities, like most Synchro-based decks, is very tight. Unfortunately, because if Gale Dearg gets its summons negated, your chances of winning pretty much plummet. Gale Bolg is not a bad card, it just doesn't offer enough useful features, especially when compared to a card like HTS Behemoth, which can remove targets without relying on destroying monsters by battle. Vajrayana is another important combo piece due to its ability to revive more than likely the very Phalanx that was used to summon it back to the field, allowing for more synchro summoning fun. However, it must be noted that its combo potential is dependent on having another level 4 non-tuner available for summons. One thing that some might forget, due to its just general lack of use, is that Vajrayana does have a second effect that bumps its attack up to at least 3,800 at the cost of sending the equipped Phalanx back to the graveyard, so Vajrayana can be your big hitter when you need one in this deck. However, with extra deck space at a premium in this deck, time to commit some Dragunity blasphemy. I only run 2 copies. Why? Because in this build, 3 copies are really not needed. Heck, any build, 3 copies are really not needed, but especially more speed builds. The big super combo, in a sense, only uses 2, and if your board gets broken after that combo or during that combo, you're basically losing the duel unless something miraculous happens. The only real reason in my mind to run 3 is if you're scared of getting your first one solemned and you still want to pull off the super combo in a future turn. However, such a contingency doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think you should be designing your deck as in a context of, oh my gosh, how can I recover if the worst happens? Dragon Mastery is an interesting idea, but it is just executed exceedingly poorly. Don't run this card. In contrast to Dragon Mastery, Divine Lance is a fantastic support card that should be run at 3 copies always. The extra attack boost is nice, allowing certain monsters to clear certain important attack point markers. The trap immunity is very nice, and the ability to equip a Dragunity tuner from the deck to the equipped monster is incredibly useful for consistency. There's not much to say about Dragon Ravine. run as many as the ban list allows. The two most common plays with Ravine for this deck will either be adding Lux when Phalanx is already in the graveyard, or putting Phalanx in the graveyard either directly or into the hand and then the graveyard via another card effect. Ravine is basically the Gem Knight fusion for Dragunity. Have it, and you're in business. Don't, and hopefully you drew really well otherwise, because it will be a hard road. With the review of the Dragunity archetype complete, obviously there are a number of holes left in this deck. Overall, in my opinion, Dragunity pairs best with a few quality isolated monsters that have specific effects that play well to what the Dragunities do, but it also can have various other hybrids like Blue Eyes and Heretics. For the remaining monsters I run, at least one copy of Blackwing Zephyros, the Elite, is essential in every possible build. I cannot imagine running the combo loop version of this deck without it. Its ability to special summon itself via bouncing a face-up card to the hand plays a critical role in most long combo strings this deck can pull off, largely involving bouncing Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon back to the hand. However, with its revival effect only valid once, I'm in the camp that I don't like running multiples, because if you draw multiples in your opening hand, it's pretty much a dead draw. So I only run one, because one is enough. Due to the searching of Dearg, you don't really need multiple copies. I run 2 copies of Garuda the Wind Spirit due to its innate special summoning ability that is almost effortless in its activation, because when using it appropriately, a Dux will be in the graveyard ready to banish. Garuda is also nice because it's searchable to the hand by Dearg when another monster is available to discard in its place. The longer combo plays with this deck are dependent on getting that second level 4 on the field other than Dux, and Dux does consume the normal summons. Garuda plays nice role as one of the best candidates for this second level 4 because it can innately special summon itself, and it's a winged beast. I run 2 copies of Mist Valley Baby Rock as a level 2 tuner that is searchable and then summoned by Dearg's effect, or possibly effect-based discarder, one of which will be seen later. Some prefer running 3 because they're concerned about drawing 1 copy of Baby Rock into their hands and they can't get it out of their hands because they don't have the right combination with Dearg, but I'm not so concerned by such matters. Due to the discarding associated with Ravine and Twin Twister in this deck that cannot link very well with Baby Rock, I do like running 2 copies of Performage Trick Clown as another means of easily getting a level 4 onto the field for Synchro purposes. While as a spellcaster, Trick Clown cannot participate in Dragunity Synchro plays, it can make other important level 6 Synchros like Red Wyvern and Coral Dragon, which will play important combination roles in this deck and allow you to string longer combos together than you otherwise might have. Trick Clown can also play a nice defensive role for the deck as well with its self-reviving effect. 1 copy of Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon is mandatory for various combo string. Typically at worst, its involvement will result in another 2800 attack point monster on the field that every turn can revive a dragon from the grave or summon one from the hand, and at best creating close to unbreakable boards unless a kaiju type monster gets involved. Well, in certain variants, maybe even a kaiju monster might not be enough, or might not even be able to get involved at all. For the rest of the spells, I run 1 copy of Raigeki, because this deck does go second from time to time, and 1 copy of Soul Charge, because Soul Charge is Soul Charge, and in a deck like this, Soul Charge is fantastic, as the general staples. Due to the importance of Dragon Ravine, I run 3 copies of Terraforming. Fortunately, there are enough discarding elements that extra terraforming copies are not a significant liability. Due to the importance of getting off big plays, especially when going second, 3 copies of Twin Twister is advisable. The importance of summoning additional level 4 non-tuner monsters without resorting to that normal summons, a common theme as we've seen so far, leads to running 3 copies of Instant Fusion. With the need for speed in this deck, I run 1 copy of Upstart Goblin, 1 copy of One Day of Peace. Dragunity decks that don't run One Day of Peace baffle me, especially when you're running 3 copies of Twin Twister, because Dragunities might as well be the poster child for running One Day of Peace. And 3 copies of Dark World Dealings. While Dealings can at times be a -1, in my opinion, this deck needs the speed, and there is enough discard fodder material to mitigate most of that threat while producing some side benefit. Basically, in a lot of respects, Dark World Dealings kind of the card that replaced the chicken game in this deck for the speed purposes. Also, I run 1 copy of Foolish Burial for obvious reasons. As King Arthur and his knights left 1 seat at the Round Table open for the Holy Grail, I almost want to leave one card spot in this deck open for the third copy of Ravine. However, at the time of this recording, Ravine is still at 2, and you have to run 40 cards. Various texts exist for this last card. One possibility is Keeper of the Shrine, which is a good discard target, as well as a nice defensive card if something goes wrong with the combo, because you almost always have a dragon on the field, unless things have really gone dreadfully wrong, and then nothing's helping you. Another possibility is one copy of Return of the Dragon Lords, for there are definitely some nice level 8 targets in this deck. One copy of Helosphere Dragon, which can be an effective stall tool when you don't have the cards, especially when you're going second. Also, a somewhat tease of a card is Influence Dragon, which can be combined with Blackwing No Thung to make a hot red dragon Archfiend Abyss. However, most of the time, the resources required to pull this off are slightly less advantageous than the standard super combo. In a sense, if you want to go this route, it comes down to having one number 38 and a Crystal Wing versus a Dearg and an Abyss. The former is typically better for going first, but the latter, if you're confident in attacking, is typically better for going second, because if the Abyss afflicts battle damage, you'll be able to pull a Phalanx out of your graveyard and use that on the Dearg to make a Crystal Wing during your main phase 2. Finally, one could drop one Mystletainn or one Dark World Dealings and run a pair of Amorphmage monsters as techs. All the Amorphage monsters are dragons, allowing them to interact with Red Eye's Darkness Metal and a Tum, along with the level 4s and lowers being searchable by Dearg. For me, I would think about running either one copy of Lechery, which can shut down spell use, or one copy of Wrath, which can shut down tributing when in the Pendulum Zone, along with one copy of Goliath, for both Goliath and Sloth do not need special condition to deny extra deck summoning. However, for me, some might be wondering why I have not talked about this card directly yet, but the one card I run is one copy of Cards of Consonance, thanks to 3 copies of Phalanx, and the ability to put one in hand with Ravine, which slightly increases the activation probability of Cards of Consonance. Overall, I'm not a big fan of running multiple copies with only 3 targets, because it can produce a higher probability for dead draw. The remainder of the extra deck, I run the following. Obviously the one Elder Entity Norden, the one Mavelus, for it's a level 4 winged beast that allows you to do something when Dux is not available and you have a Phalanx in hand. I run one Ultimaya Tzolkin. While I think Ultimaya should be banned, it is almost pathetically easy to make in this deck, and as long as it's not banned, I'll take advantage of its power. One Void Ogre Dragon. It can only be summoned through Ultimaya, but Void Ogre is still a pretty powerful card, especially when you're going second and you're facing down back row that hasn't been activated yet. One Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. One, for me, just any level 8 Synchro of your choice. I think the best options are Scrap Dragon, Stardust, and Stardust Spark Dragon. I run the Scrap Dragon for its ability to pop cards, because you're usually going to have material on your field that you don't mind getting rid of, to pop some back row that you might be concerned about being a Mirror Force variant or whatnot. One Red Wyvern, one Coral Dragon, one number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. It can be any rank 8, but I think this is probably the best rank 8 for the existing meta. 2 copies of Heretic Dragon King of Atum. 2 copies are pretty much essential for the big super combo of this deck. And finally, any rank 4 you want. I think Abyss Dweller or Queen Dragon Jin are probably the best for this particular build, and I run Abyss Dweller most of the time. Overall, like I said from the beginning, in my mind, Dragunity is basically the Glass Cannon Synchro deck, whereas Gem Knights are a Glass Cannon Fusion deck. Gem Knights are better offensively, but Dragunities do have better defensive capacity. I think there's almost kind of an upswell in the community in certain places that some people want to believe Dragunities can be tier 1 in the future if the ban list shakes out a certain way. In my opinion, this seems unlikely because Dragunities is rather easy to side against. Just add traps. While the combo plays this deck can make are impressive and extensive, they are also resource intensive. Basically, you have to invest a lot, but you get a lot out of that investment. But that resource intensiveness is such to the point that a well-timed negation trap or mirror force variant shuts the combo down rather effectively and pretty much leaves the deck on life support. For example, if your Dearg is solemned, probability of winning collapses for this deck. Can this deck be competitive? Most definitely. But Tier 1, I'm not seeing that as a possibility. Well, that's my Dragunity deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.